Everybody I talk to, market's changed, market's different, but guess who's not playing the game different? The agents. They're still operating the same old school way they were.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
So I really want to just kind of really break down with what's the difference here in what I'm seeing in a volatile market. And so the kind of topic for this one is, how do I dominate in a volatile market going forward? And I was really looking at a couple main things. What are the biggest complaints I'm getting right now from clients and consumers? Ideally, I'm getting a lot of the same ones, that they're just patterns, right? And what it is it just has to do with adjustments and opportunities we miss, both leads that get missed. I listen to calls into inside sales, and some of that has to do the same things over and over. And I really want to share with you, hey, look, what are the four most important things that we can do to dominate in a volatile market? And so I think I titled it when I wrote it out, was winning in a volatile market. What does that mean, volatile market? Ups and downs, right? What types of ups and downs are we seeing? Like what? Interest rates. That's called what? Volatility, which is going to do what? It's going to shake and rattle the confidence of the consumers. And so what happens is you're going to see a contraction and expansion all over the place with consumers when they're buying and or selling. And so part of what we got to do there is, how do I make sure that I dominate and play the game the right way, and I can focus on the key metrics and the key things that mean the most. And so looking back about some of the biggest things that we've missed, I feel that one thing, here's another example. If you look at the 3-month average in the marketplace here, sales are down. Anybody know what the sales are down 3 months average right now? 43%, right? 3-month average sales down 43%. Bounced back a little bit last month. It's only 20-something, but 3-month average, 43% decline. So what that means is 43% less buyers bought in the last 3 months than the year before. And so what's happening is you saw a market with 43% change, less buyers, and guess what you did not see? 43% less agents, that's for sure. Yet, right? And you're not seeing 43% change in what? The way the agents operate. What that means is the agents aren't changing fast enough to keep up with the volatility of the market. They're not moving fast enough. They're not adjusting their patterns fast enough. Not adjusting their habits fast enough. And so one of the biggest things I noticed in just reading and feeling and watching, and I watch all the emails and watch all the leads come through and watch all the response to leads, and I listen to a lot of phone calls that come through to inside sales. And what's happening is, one of the biggest things I think that we all need to make sure that we're hammering on, and is super important, by far the number one, is urgency. This is also what's being left and lost with agents in the last few months. I'd say this last 6 months, in terms of what's happened in the market shift. And so what that means is, when the market was hot and there's 43% more buyers previously, you could get away with a lot more. Specifically, you get away with what? Less urgency. You get away by just going through the motions and just going through and doing what you did before and doing the same thing every day and coming and going and just going through the motions without having true sense of urgency. And the real problem with that is here's how the market was, right? What's happened when you go in about halfway, this is where the market is now. And so in essence, the problem is you have 43% less sales overall, but what do you have still? The shit ton of agents, the same amount of agents. And so what's happening, you have a lot of people that are still going through these same motions right here, but there's 43% less buyers, and what's happening is majority of agents are going the same exact speed. And so what you can do is you just have a little bit more urgency, a little bit more push. You're able to capture those buyers that are left there with 43% less of them. Does that make sense, you guys? And what most are doing is going through the motions, and what's happening is here, they're getting left in this middle, and they're getting beat out by the hungry ones. The way I talk, the way I walk, the overall speed of response is super important in terms of, how do I talk to my clients? We're losing dozens and dozens and dozens of deals a month from just a speed of response and urgency standpoint. Why? They're just going through the motions, doing what they did before, doing what's comfortable, and they're not taking the extra urgency. And the whole mathematics of the equation, when you have 43% less people with the same amount of competition, you've got to be that much faster. It's just economics, just simple math. Same 6,000 agents, 43% less sales. You have to have more urgency. But the crazy part about it is almost everyone's doing the same amount of work. There's just a small percentage of people here who are getting all the rewards. And the ones that get all the rewards are the ones that have the most urgency. Second piece I've noticed a lot from feedback and just things I've seen. Second piece of this is over communication. This is what you want to have. What do you think that means? Over communication. No, not necessarily. This is more for clients, someone who's met with me, someone who's has a relationship with me, somebody who's in my bucket, somebody who's just somewhere a part of my connection to them as in a sales conversation. But here's the thing. I need less text and more talk. Less text and more talk. I'm reading notes and responses into both Boomtown and people that have sent me. I had multiple clients in the last week sent me pictures, screenshots complaining of their conversations with the agent. And what did the conversation look like, you think? Short, terrible responses that show the agent was too busy, didn't really care at a deep level, and it's hard to really understand and read. Now, is that necessarily the agent's fault? Yeah, but a lot of times here's what people don't realize. What happens if you text back and forth with a client too much? This is not you, one of them, but you've learned this before.
Too much?
If you text back with a client about serious issues, what happens?
It could be perceived the wrong way.
It will be perceived the wrong way.
Yeah, for your tonality, or maybe you said something that they thought the word meant something else. And
it always gets misconstrued, right? Which is why the goal of text with anybody that's your client is to do what? Get them on the phone. Well, my client's too busy. What does that mean? Well, it means I haven't communicated the right way. Can you hear me that? They haven't communicated the right way to say what?
Hey, this is important. You need 5 minutes.
I need you to hop on a call with me real quick for a call. But some of this I'm seeing, hey, I'm in this appointment, I can't call. I'm in this right now, I can't do this. And what happens is it looks to the client like you're too busy for the client. And so they become dissatisfied, and guess what happens after that? They don't trust you to the first step. Depending on how type of agreement you have with them, they may or may not go somewhere else. If they don't have an iron agreement, they're going to go somewhere else. And so I need right now, you have to have over communication in terms of how you operate with your clients. And that's super important, right? I make sure I think through my responses. Does this response come across a way that makes me look like I don't care? And I need to make sure that I'm following the process. Which is what? If I have a lead, or somebody in my bucket, let's say, that's a lead, and I call them and they don't answer, what happens? I'll leave a voicemail. Send an email, text message. This happened yesterday. Very underwhelming response on some of our seller leads came through. Some of the seller leads came through. One had a message. Another one didn't have any text messages. One had a landline. Didn't look up the Spokio to find the cell number. Very underwhelming in terms of follow-up. You have to have over communication, which is really doing what? The extra mile. Why? Because I'm really trying to differentiate myself to my client or potential client, which means they need to feel like I'm different than everybody else. What do most average lazy agents do? Send a short text. They're not over-communicating in terms of how they communicate, in terms of what they do. And this is one of the big problems I see when people complain to me, or they just obviously are calling in, going somewhere else, or I hear the feedback. Very, very important piece here. I mentioned most of the feedback is underwhelming. Most of the is underwhelming. And here's the thing. If I'm in busy in appointments and I have a client call me, what do I do? I already have them pre-framed that I'm going to call them back. I don't say, I'm busy right now with XYZ, here's the answer. Because how does that make them feel about how I feel about them? They're not important. And if I send multiple messages and say I'm busy, I'm in an appointment, I'm doing this, and I never actually call them back or never have a deep conversation with them, what do they feel about me as their agent? That you don't give a shit and that you don't have time for. That, hey, John and Mary, I'm back-to-back appointments a lot of times. I will call you back in between appointments. I tell them, hey, look, my phone's rang 5 times since I've been sitting with you already, and I'm not going to answer that phone because I don't want to disrespect you and your time. So what I do if you call me is I'll call you back in between appointments. Does that sound good enough to you? Yes. Now they're pre-framed, so they don't expect an answer from me in 2 seconds. Then what I do? call them back when I have their full attention. I can have my full attention be a part of them. Third piece here. You need to have a consistent cadence. What does that mean? What does cadence mean? Rhythm. Yes, one of the words is rhythm. So that's the rhythm I have in my file with my clients. The definition here, which I thought was very good, is a sequence that is regular. A sequence that is regular. We struggle with this on both the buyer side and seller side. What do we tend to do? This is what our file looks like on both sides. So the lead comes in, communication goes through the roof, everybody gets blown up, then what happens? This is what it looks like. So we have all these leads that come in, they get shit called for 1 or 2 weeks, and then what happens? They go to the abyss. And they just sit there. Now, some of your buckets are getting converted in a way you're calling them irregularly every other week, but it's not consistent, and so the consumer is looking for a cadence from you. They want to feel a rhythm, and I think in today's time, consumers feel like they need to hear from you X amount of times in their mind to just what? To earn the right to talk to them. And part of that is we're so busy, and we have so much going on that we're not able to really understand and keep how many times you are called or who they're calling, so I've got to have a constant cadence. And that cadence for me, if they're in my bucket, needs to be very specific. The same things every time, which is what? Calls, texts, emails, and constantly rotate those around. Very important piece here. Other piece here is missing for a lot of people is a marathon mindset. We're very bad at this on our seller side. We call the shit out of them for a week, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they just not even call at all. We see this on the buyer side. They log in, they're not logging in. Some of our Zillow leads come through. They don't actually log in the site, so they get the shit called out of them for the first 2 weeks, and then what happens? No one calls them because they're not logging in. So people understand lead intelligence and how to make sure that how do I have consistent cadence in terms of what I'm doing. You have to earn the right a lot of times right now in today's society because there's so much noise. And there's so much what? Competition. They got 10 other agents calling them. The one that calls the most and for the longest and the most consistent is usually going to win the battle. If it wasn't already the one who got there the fastest. And so it's important to understand the difference there of speed of response and what that really matters to them overall. Fourth piece, which I think is very important, that I just noticed a lacking of, and I've just heard this and just watching and studying, is there has to be differentiation early and often. Differentiation early and often. What does that mean there? I've got to set myself apart that very first call. On the seller side, if I'm at an appointment on the seller side, if I'm having the first call on the seller side, same thing with buyers. I've got to wow them with the wow factor in what? In my energy, my tonality, my knowledge. I've got to wow them. Why? Because it's very competitive right now. We have 43% less buyers, same amount of agents. Guess what? The one that wows them the most is going to give them the most feeling of the best feeling of the most trust, and they want to be able to feel with somebody they can connect with. And so I need to be very aware of, am I underwhelming or am I overwhelming in terms of my way I'm coming in for my differentiation? I'm always talking about from the very beginning that what? I'm their guy. Or I'm the girl, right? However you want to word it. It's like, I'm your connection in Myrtle Beach when you are ready. Hey, I understand you aren't ready yet, but I just want you to know one thing. I'm the guy that's been following up, and I'm here, I'm hungry, and I'll make sure I represent you to both. I'm your guy in Myrtle Beach, anything, everything you need real estate related. And I tell them that. Why? They don't know, and I need them to understand that I'm different. And I'm not going to get that across unless I do what? Articulate it to them. With energy, with certainty, and overall way I come. Right? Very, very important piece here in terms. So I got to do that. Make sure I come across on the phone that I'm sharp. A lot of times we'll talk about this in tonality today, is a lot of the tonality is just flat. It's just going through the motions. So what's happening is they're already having a lot of shit going on. They got frustration with phone calls. They're getting robocallers. And you're coming in flat. You're getting killed before you even have a chance to take your shot. Why? Because you're not coming across sharp as attack from the very beginning with your energy and tonality. I must be very specific in anchoring in my differentiation. We're a team. We're different. We're the number one team, Myrtle Beach. You don't have to worry about anybody else. I got you here. I'm going to go ahead and get you set up. Then the next call, guess what I'm doing? Checking their search, seeing how it's going, letting them know again that I what?
Here, I'm Cam, your guy.
I hear, I care, I'm your guy, have the best market knowledge around. I study this market like no one else, right? I'm here to make sure I over-communicate you every single way. Hey, I don't want to be overwhelming to you. I just want you to know I'm here, boots on the ground when you do need it. I feel like I have a responsibility to follow up with you more than anybody else. Why is that? Because I'm here to make sure that I'm here for you when you are ready. I'm saying things that are different, speaking a language that's different, so that they're automatically attracted to me in my follow-up. But sometimes you just got to say what you got to say. Too many times we just hope that following up with them is just enough. It's not enough. Being the nice guy or the nice girl is not going to be enough in your follow-up. You've got to make sure that you're differentiating early and often. Now, once I talk to them, what do? I must send them something of value. A lot of that's going to be what? A video of some sort. Why? They get a video from me that's personalized, like through we use in the back end of our system that you can do with one click. Now they feel connected to you, they see you, and they've heard from you. You say their name in the video, guess what they feel all of a sudden?
Connection.
Deeper connection. And all these are small little increments that I'm differentiating myself from everyone else because I've got to separate myself from the noise, the 6,000 plus other agents and 43% less buyers. Meaning I got to do things differently than I had to do before. Before I get away with not sending a video. Why is that? Because it was a frenzy. Now we're in a market of hesitation, and so I've got to make sure I move differently and I differentiate at a much higher level so that they can understand that I am different, that we are different here, and our overall mentality is different than everybody else. Here's the deal. There's a fine line, but you learn that as you process. In the beginning, I'm okay talking too much. And then what do? I get skilled enough to back that down a little bit and talk a little bit less. But I have to be able to deliver enough emotion in the shorter conversation that I can in the longer conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I definitely don't do it with a text message. I said, he sent me a text message. She goes, he sent you a text message instead of calling you back? I said, yeah, that's what he did. She's like, that's weird. Do you know what I'm saying? Perfect example of what people think, but on a different level of class. I don't know about it because I understand, hey, look, I'm just there to serve and to make the deposit, right? But your clients are thinking that same shit, man. Like, I just called this dude the question about the largest investment I've ever made on anything. He sent me a text message back. And so some of that we just got to look inside and say, look, am I delivering the highest level of service for somebody who's buying the largest purchase of their entire life? They're scared. They're unsure. They're not sure. And guess if I'm not answering and they're going to go somewhere else, somebody that is.